I just know the Simps are happy about this one. We got a new sheriff in town and her name's Raye. She's on that Goku type shit, dipping in and out of her different forms to get whatever buff you need in that moment. You can use her as link material for any of the links, and any of the links can be used as material for any of the other links, because all of them are just Raye wearing different mech suits that give her different powers. Kigari on summon adds a Sky Striker spell from grave to hand and gains 100 attack for every spell in your grave. All of the Sky Striker spells aren't once per turn, so Kigari adding him back is free real estate, just being able to use him again. Shizuki reduces the opponent's monsters by 100 attack for every spell in grave, and on the end phase of the turn it's summoned, it'll search for a Sky Striker spell with a different name from the ones in your grave. That end phase search is going to be securing our follow-up play. Hayate can attack directly, and after it battles it can send any Sky Striker card to the grave. Sending to the grave after attacking is good because we have an effect in this deck to set spells from our graveyard on end phase. Attacking directly with 1500 can also just be a really good way to get you closer to winning the game. And lastly, Kinda on summon targets an opponent's monster and makes it so that monster can't attack until the end of our opponent's turn, and it'll gain you 100 life every time you use a Sky Striker spell. This is the least important out of them, but she can be used to help you to survive. You could summon your Raye and link her off into one of her mech suits to get their effect, then link that link off into another one of those links to get another of their effects. And the best part of this is that Raye has some ways to ensure that the opponent mess this up for us. We normal summon our Raye and the opponent wants to use Crackdown, Warning Point, Book of Moon, or Compulse to make it so that we can't link her off, but she activates her quick effect to tribute itself to tag out into one of the link forms. Now the interruption they used really meant nothing at all, so we are going to be able to safely link summon either normally or by Raye's effect. But then we get out our link monster and our opponent uses something like Successor Soul or Felgrand to get rid of it. Well, Raye will trigger engrave whenever your Sky Striker link was removed from the field by an opponent to special summon herself from the grave, so you could use her as link material again. But if it's during your main phase, you can link her off like normal, but if it isn't, then you can use her quick effect to tag out if you haven't used that effect already, since her effects are hard once per turn. If the opponent gets rid of your links in battle, it'll be the exact same thing. She's going to come back from grave and she's going to be able to tag out into another Sky Striker link before the next turn. All of this just shows that Raye is very well equipped to keep you in the game. She's very difficult to interrupt because of her quick effect, and she makes the links difficult to interrupt because of her revival effect. This is because those links effects are what's really going to be getting our game plan going in this deck, that game plan revolving around our Sky Striker spell, because Shizuki will search one in end phase, Kigari will add one from grave back to hand, and Hayate will send one from deck to grave. Hayate, Shizuku, and Kigari are the main links that help us set up whatever we need in this deck, because they all do something to help us see our spells. The Sky Striker spells are the ways that we are going to disrupt and dismantle our opponent's strategy, so let's split them up into disrupting and dismantling. Our disruptive spells are Widow Anchor and Shark Cannon. You can see Widow Anchor as Forbidden Chalice, just a target negate, and Shark Cannon as DD Crow, a target banish from our grave. Our dismantling spells are Afterburners and Jamming Waves. Afterburners gets to destroy a face-up monster, and Jamming Waves targets to destroy a face-down back row. The thing is, with all of these though, you aren't even allowed to activate them if you have any monsters in the main monster zones. So these three zones here, so if you wanted to use them, you'd have to either control no monsters at all, or the only monster you control would have to be a link monster in the extra monster zone. You always got to keep that in mind as the golden rule for Sky Strikers: never have any monsters in these zones here if you want to activate more Sky Striker spells. The other thing about them is that they don't just do what I told you they can do, they also get to give you a bonus effect if you have 3 or more spell cards in your grave when you activate them. Widow Anchor is normally just a target negate, but if you have 3 or more spells in grave when it resolves, you also get to steal the monster you're targeting until the end of the turn. Shark Cannon is normally just a target grave banish, but if you have 3 or more spells in grave, you could instead summon that monster to your field. A lot of the time with these two, you might actually choose not to take their monster, since by taking their monster, you'll be putting monsters in your main monster zones, turning off your other Sky Striker spells. But if you don't have any other Sky Striker spells to use that turn, then it's fine to take them as bodies to protect your life points. And if you want to just link climb, you can use your opponent's monsters as material to go into bigger link monsters to break the opponent's board, and that will give your opponent's monsters on your field some use without clogging up your main monster zone. Afterburners normally targets to destroy a face-up monster, but if you have 3 or more spells in grave when it resolves, it will also destroy a back row without targeting. And similarly for Jamming Waves, which normally just targets to destroy a face-down back row, if you have 3 or more spells in grave, it will also destroy a monster without targeting. Technically, both of these spells' bonus effects are better than their normal effects. The normal effects target a card, and they care about whether the card they are targeting is face up or face down, but their bonus effects don't target, and they don't care if the card is face up or face down. Cool, man, we got a monster that gives us cool link plays that are resilient to interruptions, and we got a bag of tricks in our spells that get us whatever we need. But Shizuku searching on end phase isn't really helping us get what we need when we need it. We need to get things done. In order to get things done, we've got Engage, Area 0, and Multi-Roll. Sky Striker Mobilize Engage is really simple. It just searches any Sky Striker card, so you can get any spell you need for the situation, or you could get Raye to get your Link summons going. If you have 3 or more spells engraved when this resolves though, you also get to draw a bonus card. This is probably a good time to mention the Widow Anchor, Shark Cannon, Afterburners, and Jamming Waves are all not once per turn at all, so if you're able to use them multiple times, like adding them back with Kagari, then you can, and the same is true for Engage. Engage being able to get you multiple searches is fantastic, and being able to get you bonus draws is also really insane for card advantage, so we are going to be looking to take as much advantage of Engage as possible. Multi-Roll is a continuous spell, and it doesn't have a bonus effect if you got 3 spells engraved, but it does have 2 really nice effects. The first is that you can send another card you control to the grave to make it so your opponent can't respond to your spells for the rest of the turn, so any spell negation isn't going to work here. The cool thing is that you can use Multi-Roll to target Raye on field to use its effect, and with a toggle on you can chain Raye to tag out into one of the links, and both will be able to resolve successfully. If you aren't doing that though, this could just be a nice way to fill your grave with spells just by setting a spell for this Descent to Grave to help you get to that nice 3 spells in grave situation to upgrade the rest of your spells. Multi-Roll's other effect is the big one though, that on the end phase you can set Sky Striker back row to your field up to the amount of Sky Striker spells you activated that turn, so you get bonus uses out of your Sky Striker spells getting them back. The main drawback of this is that once those spells that you got back leave the field, they are going to be banished and you aren't going to be able to get them back in this deck. So when you set something with this, do so knowing that it's not going to go back to the grave. Often what's going to happen is you're going to have Multi-Roll on your own end phase, and it might set back Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon to interrupt the opponent, and you'll use those on the opponent's turn to negate a monster on their field or banish a monster from their grave, and maybe even take one of those monsters. But since they are Sky Striker spells on the opponent's end phase, it's going to trigger Multi-Roll again to set more spells from your grave, so you could potentially get back your Afterburners, Jamming Waves, or even your Engage. Just keep in mind with Multi-Roll that when you set spells back to field from your grave, that you are going to be taking away from the total spell count in your grave permanently, since those spells aren't going to be going back to your grave when you use them again. So if you really want to get the bonus effects of your spells, then try to keep at least 3 spells in grave when you're using Multi-Roll. If you need a spell for the opponent's turn but don't have a way to get it, you could attack directly with Hayate to send something to the grave so that on the end phase Multi-Roll can put it back into the back row. There's a play in the TCG where you use Shizuku on end phase to search for Widow Anchor, then use Widow Anchor immediately to target Shizuku so that you can get the Widow into the grave, and you can use Multi-Roll to get back that Widow. But it's important for you to know that if you're going to play this in Duel Links, that this play is not available here, since the Multi-Roll has to activate at the start of the end phase before anything else, so it will happen before Shizuku. We can only really play 3 Raye in our deck and the 2 Engage that can search for it. 5 cards in the deck giving us access to Raye isn't quite enough to be consistent, so we are going to need some way to get access to it. The best way we can do that is with our field spell Area 0, which can target a card you control to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and if there's a Sky Striker card in there, the targeted card goes to the grave and you add one of the revealed Sky Striker cards to your hand. So if one of those 3 cards is Raye, then awesome, but this card is good even if we already have Raye, because it could add another spell we might like to use, while also getting spells into our grave to help us get the bonus effects of our spells. What's also cool if you have this alongside Raye is that you can do the same thing that you can do with Multi-Roll by having Area 0 target Raye with your toggle on. Raye can quick effect tag out and you'll still get to add a card from the top 3 cards of your deck. Area 0 looking at the top 3 cards of the deck isn't the most guaranteed thing in the world, however it has a nice combo with Multi-Roll. You could have Multi-Roll send Area 0 to grave for its first effect, and that will then trigger the Area 0's graveyard effect, that if it's sent from field to grave by a card effect, it special summons a Sky Striker monster from the deck, so that would give us a guaranteed way to get Raye. For more consistent access to Raye, you could play Reinforcements of the Army, since she is a warrior type monster, and that would be a valid choice. However, most competitive players are preferring to use Terraforming to search for Area 0, as while it is less guaranteed than Rhoda, it has more applications if you already have your Raye, giving you more access to spells, whereas Rhoda, when you already have Raye, isn't going to help you out very much. This deck is kind of unique in that it's not really a deck that has any combos. It's the kind of deck where the sequencing of your spells is what matters most, doing things in the right order to make sure you set up what you need to set up. Often what your first turn is going to look like is using Raye to go into Shizuku and having Shizuku search a good card advantage card for a follow-up play like Multi-Roll if you don't have it yet, or Engage if you haven't used it yet. Whatever Shizuku searches, it has to be something that isn't in your graveyard. If you want Shizuku to search for Engage but you already have Engage in grave and you also have Multi-Roll, you could use Multi-Roll to set back engage, that way the engage isn't in your graveyard. We really need to set up a link monster with Raye for card advantage reasons, but also in order to survive, because if the opponent kills our link monster, it'll let us resummon Raye from grave, so you could then use Raye's quick effect to summon Kaina from the extra deck to make it so one of the opponent's monsters can't attack that turn, giving you extra survivability. If the opponent doesn't have any monsters they can attack with, you could instead use her to tag into another Shizuku for another end phase search whenever you need, or you could tag into Kagari to add a spell from grave back to hand. More often though, we want to be using our Shizukus, since Shizuku is the only link we get to play more than one copy of, and the rest are just a one copy in our extra deck from the skill, so we need to use them wisely. The big thing you're really going to pay attention to is that multi-roll is going to be your best card advantage engine in the deck. Once you get 3 or more spells in grave, all of your powerful spells are going to be giving you a great amount of advantage against the opponent. But before you get to that point, the opponent's going to be throwing a lot of things your way, and you need to be able to survive that. So you are going to need a hell of a lot of card advantage to get that done. Basically what I'm saying is, get multi-roll as soon as possible if you can, and activate it before using everything else. If you need to use its first effect to make your spells impossible to respond to, then that's there for you, but the main thing is that you get to activate a bunch of spells, then set a bunch of spells on end phase so you can have disruption and follow-up. Widow Anchor, Shark Cannon, Afterburners, and Gemming Waves aren't likely to be something you use on the first turn, since they are all dealing with the opponent's cards, but Area Zero and Engage are cards you can use on your first turn to help the multi-roll set things back to your field on end phase. It is important to note, however, that even if your multi-roll might be able to set back 3 cards from grave, a field spell and 2 other spells, you might prefer to set some back row from your hand so that the spells in your grave aren't banished later, so you can keep your spell count of 3 in grave. It's also worth noting that if you have multi-roll, you don't necessarily have to use its effect on your first turn. You could just set a couple of back row knowing that on the opponent's end phase, you're going to be able to set back some back row. When you're going second, it's going to be a lot easier because all of your spells are going to be usable, and you can activate your multi-roll, then use your other spells to break the opponent's board down enough so that you can survive against it, and then the multi-roll can get the sum amount of those spells back. At the end of your turn, the survivability of your Link and your Raye are definitely going to be helpful, but they won't always be enough, especially if the opponent has DD Crow to get rid of your Raye in grave, so you are still going to want to have other interruptions. If you use Engage, Area Zero, or Hayate to give you Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon, or even both, then you'll definitely want to have those to interrupt the opponent. Your turns are going to continue just being about using your spells to deal with everything the opponent has, and attacking with your links if you can. Engage drawing a bonus card, and Afterburners and Gemming Waves destroying 2 cards is going to be really important for giving you the upper hand in card advantage until eventually the opponent has nothing left to defend themselves from you. There are certain rules you need to keep in mind whenever you're playing Sky Striker to make sure that you are getting the best out of your cards. We already went over the first one, that you need to keep your main monster zones empty. You might really be tempted to take your opponent's monster with Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon, but if doing so would stop your ability to use your other Sky Striker spells that turn, then you might want to avoid that. If it's your opponent's turn though, and Widow Anchor or Shark Cannon are the last Sky Striker spell that you are able to use on the opponent's turn, there's no problem with taking their monster since you aren't activating any other Sky Striker spells that turn anyway, and Widow Anchor will give them back their monster on end phase, and the monster you take with Shark Cannon can be used as link material on the follow-up turn anyway. It's important to keep in mind, even though your spells can't activate while you have monsters in the main monster zones, your links can still activate under those conditions, so before you link off a Sky Striker link and an opponent's monster, you could use your link to go into Kagari to add back a Sky Striker spell from grave, or into Kaina so that an opponent's monster won't be able to attack on the next turn. You'll need to do this before linking off, because if you do bigger link monsters, you will no longer have the Raye float if your link dies. You could also circumvent this by having Area Zero or multi-roll send their monster to the grave for their benefits, clearing your main monster zone and giving you additional benefit. We also talked a bit about making sure you can get 3 spells in grave, but this is something that's very easy to forget. You might have an Engage in your grave that you want to add back to your hand with Kagari and a spell in hand. It's an easy mistake to go into Kagari first to add back that Engage, but then you'll only have 2 spells in grave. If you have 3 spells in grave and want to add 1 back, then use another spell first if you can, or use multi-roll or Area Zero to get another spell in grave. Then you can add back that Engage so that you can get that bonus draw, and the same is true for anything else that you want to fetch from grave with either Kagari or multi-roll. Sometimes you won't really have much choice in the matter though, and that's okay. You just need to be able to make the best decision you can for the situation that you're in. This deck's goal isn't to OTK the opponent, and often we are going to be winning by just gradually attacking with our Sky Striker links, but there are some ways that we can get more damage going in this deck. A nice and easy way to get damage is to have Raye on the field to attack with her as a 1500 body, and then during the battle phase tag her out into a link to attack in with that, and that's going to be at least 3k damage, more if you summon Kagari with this, who is going to be gaining attack based on the amount of spells engraved. Just know that if you are going to do this play, you need to have no monsters in your extra monster zone, since Raye can only summon to the extra monster zone. Probably the best cards you can have for going for game are Widow Anchor and Shark Cannon. Just being able to get additional bodies on the board makes it easy to go into link plays. You can go into your Kagari since it's a fire monster and have it add something back, maybe even the Widow Anchor or the Shark Cannon themselves. Then you can take one of their monsters with one of them and link summon the link to Hida, the Fire Charmer Ablaze, who on link summon can revive an opponent's fire monster from their grave. This is actually really common if you look at the meta, because of course there's the mirror match plays Kagari, Mayakashi that plays the fire Yoko, Shiranui that is just all fire attribute in general, Tenny that plays Mapura, and a lot of other people play the Nightmare Phoenix, which is a fire attribute too. With that bonus free body on board, you can go into Nightmare Unicorn to break their body even more, and if the fire you revived was a link, you could go into Ngirsu to deal with something that can't be targeted by card effects. If what you revived was a link too, or if you have another card that can steal an opponent's monster, then you can also link into Rustalaga, which can gain the attack of a link engrave to help you get big damage for game. Alternatively, instead of Rustalaga, you might actually prefer to go into Amphibious Swarm Ship Ambler Whale, which gains 200 attack for each link monster in both players' graves, so he can get pretty big, and if he's destroyed, you can revive one of your other links, and if one of your other links is destroyed while he's engraved, you can banish himself to destroy a card on the field. While you might not be able to get as huge as Rustalaga as fast, he's definitely a lot better for grinding, and being able to revive Sky Striker links is pretty insane as well, since Shizuku, Kagari, and Kaina all trigger on special summon, not just on link summon. Keep in mind though that you won't be able to revive them if they were summoned by Raye's effect, since that effect isn't considered a link summon, and extra deck monsters can't be revived if they weren't summoned properly first. You're also going to keep in mind that a monster you steal with Widow Anchor is going to be able to attack, but is going to go back to your opponent's field on the end phase, while Shark Cannon will let you keep the monster, but it won't let you attack with it. The deck for the most part is going to build itself. The skill is going to put 2 Engage into your deck, and one of each of Kagari, Hayate, and Kaina into your extra deck regardless, and you're going to need 3 Raye, 3 Area 0, and either reinforcements of the army or terraforming to help you get that Raye. You have to play at least 1 multi-role. When it comes to spells that deal with the opponent, there is some amount of choice, but you should probably be playing 2 Widow Anchor and 2 Shark Cannon, since these are your main interruption and your best ways to link climb for game, and banishing the first copy for multi-role and not having another backup is going to feel really rough for you. With Afterburners and Jamming Waves, it's not too deep which ratios you pick. If you don't have Jamming Waves, that's okay, since Afterburners is backer removal anyway, so you could just run that, but I would recommend running a total of 3 or 4 between those 2 cards, prioritizing the Afterburners since destroying monsters is often going to be more important in the early game for your survival. After that, there's likely going to be some room left in your deck for you to make some personal choices. The choice you make is often going to be dependent on the format, dependent on your personal playstyle, or dependent on what cards you have access to. I'll talk about all the different options you could choose from and why they might be good to choose. First of all, you might like to play a second copy of multi-role simply because having that slightly higher chance to open it can mean that you don't have to search for it with Engage or Shizuku, and having it alongside Area 0 is a really good way to guarantee Raye on the field too. And if you happen to have both, you could send one to the grave for the effect of the other, or for the effect of Area 0, so it's not totally dead. Could choose to play a copy of Eagle Booster. It's another searchable Sky Striker quick play that can make a monster in your extra monster zone unaffected by all other card effects for the turn. You can protect your links if you feel like the opponent's going to be messing with them, and if the opponent has enough interruptions to deal with your plays, then this might be exactly what you need to search for. I personally have had it come up before, but it is rare that it comes up, so it might just be worth side decking one of this. Hercules Base is a card that can help your grind game, and this can be important in really grindy matchups like the mirror match for example, because you can search for it just to set it and send it to the grave with multi-role or Area 0, so that it can use its grave effect to shuffle up to 3 Sky Striker monsters back into your deck. You can get back your Kagari, Hayate, and Kaina back into the extra deck so you can use them again, as only being able to play one of each means you have to be really careful about when you use them, and Hercules Base means you get to use them again. For most games this won't come up as long as you're using your links effectively, but in grindier games you might like to side one copy of this in. This deck is already pretty good at going second with all of the board breaking it has available to it with Widow Anchor, Shark Cannon, Afterburners, and Jamming Waves, but you could choose to make it even stronger for going second by playing Book of Moon, MST, Droplet, Chalice, or Cosmic, as they are all spell cards that can help you to deal with the opponent's board. Mind Control is another card that you can consider, similar to the cards that I just mentioned, but I'm mentioning it separately because it has a bit of a special utility. Of course, it is similar similar to Widow Anchor in that it can take an opponent's monster to be used as link material or to attack with, but another nice thing about it is that if you're going second in the mirror match, which is pretty likely considering how popular this deck is, you can use Mind Control to steal the opponent's Sky Striker link and immediately link it off into your own Sky Striker link, which not only gets you the link you need, but also gets rid of their link in a way that doesn't trigger their Raye to revive itself. Any Sky Striker players, however, feel that the Sky Striker spells themselves do a good enough job at breaking the opponent's board, but they still want to play more spells in the deck, because the really important thing about all of the spells I've talked about is that they are good enough cards that help you get 3 spells engraved, because that is really the big goal of the early game, getting 3 spells engraved to upgrade your Sky Striker spell effects. With this in mind, many Sky Striker players are playing some amount of Into the Void Dark World dealings and Dragged Down into the Grave. Into the Void is pretty simple. You can activate it if you have 3 or more cards in hand, and it just lets you draw 1 card, putting itself, a spell card, into your grave. A very easy way to fill your grave with spells, especially if you can use multiple. On the end phase of the turn you use this, you have to discard your whole hand, which can be really awkward if you're using Shizuku to search for something, or if you are just keeping spells in hand for general follow-up plays. Dark World Dealings is a bit different though. It doesn't have that downside Into the Void has, but it makes both players draw a card and then discard a card, so you can get some consistency from that draw, but you also get to put itself and another spell card into the grave with that discard, putting you really close to your 3 spells in grave really quickly, with the main downside being that your opponent gets to choose which card they discard from their own hand, which might give them a beneficial graveyard effect. Drag Down into the Grave is similar to Dark World Dealings, but without the downside of the opponent getting to choose. You activate it and both players choose a card from the opponent's hand and they have to discard that card. And you might think this would be an awkward thing, letting your opponent discard a card from your hand, but since you're using it on your turn, you can put your cards onto the field before activating this, so the opponent's only option for discard in your hand is a card that you're okay with discarding. And then you get to choose a card you don't want the opponent to have in their own hand and discard that. After that discard, both players will draw a card, the opposite order from Dark World Dealings. These 3 cards are going to be getting you to your 3 spells in grave faster than the other options, while not being so bad for card advantage the way Droplet would be, and they all inherently make the deck more consistent as well, which can be important if you don't have a way to get to your Raye, because after all, if you don't Raye, you don't play. Truthfully though, every single one of these spells I mentioned is a legitimately good option that you can choose to play, and the decision you make is going to be based on your own personal decision. I'm not going to tell you that one way is better than another, I can just show what conclusion I personally come to. A big weakness of this deck that I definitely do need to bring up is that if you can't summon Ningirsu, which you often won't be able to, then it's going to be really difficult to get rid of monsters with targeting protection or destruction protection, or both. With this in mind, you might choose to play Ice Dragon's Prison. It is a pretty easy way to deal with those kind of things a lot of the time, while also being pretty applicable in a lot of other matchups as well. It being a trap card gives it a clear disadvantage in comparison to the spell options you could play. However, the spell options all target and destroy, while this one doesn't do either. I personally am playing 2 copies of IDP, 2 copies of Dark World Dealings, and 1 copy of Drag Down, since there's only 1 available in the game. I feel like 3 copies of IDP in this deck that really wants to have a lot of spells would unfortunately lead to bricks, but playing 1 or 2 IDP to potentially draw into it with Engage, Dark World Dealings, or Drag Down, and with all of our deck thinning, is going to be solid enough to draw into it when we need it. In the extra deck, if you are playing Hercules base, you could play 2 copies of Shizuku, but being able to go into it 3 times is important, and the skill doesn't give you a bonus copy if you actually have the card itself in the extra deck. Ida is unfortunately a selection box exclusive, so not all players will be able to get a hold of it, but it's so good that if you can play it, you probably should play it if you have it, but if you don't, no sweat, there's other links you can play anyway. Regardless, it is important to have at least 1 link 2, at least 1 link 3, and at least 1 link 4, simply so that you always have a way to link things off if you've got monsters in the main monster zones. The good link 2s you might consider are Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus, and Ferocious Flame Swordsman. The good link 3s you can play are Nightmare Unicorn, of course, Ningirsu as well, but Crusadia Equinox is also pretty good, just to get a lot of damage on board. Good link 4s you could play are Rustalaga and Ambler Whale, like I talked about before, but Borrelord Dragon might be something you consider. It's untargetable by monster effects, and it can get rid of opponent's monsters in a way that might open up lethal damage, and more importantly, in a way that doesn't target or destroy. This is what my striker deck is looking like right now, this is what I'm feeling at the moment, but I really want to stress that other than the mandatory stuff I talked about, you can really pick and choose how you want to tech out this deck, and you could even potentially get creative looking up a bunch of spells in the game that you might like to play with in this deck. At the end of the day, guys, I'm not here to tell you how to build your deck, I'm just here to show you how to play it, so without further ado, it's time to do. Alright, so I'm going first here against TGs, and the unfortunate thing about the TG Sky Striker match is that generally speaking, whoever goes first loses, and I am going first. I have to have an absolute busted hand, but TGs, you know, if they go second, the reason that they can kind of win is that they can, you know, avoid the floating effect of Raye by just attacking in with Onimaru for 6k, and that would be lethal, and they can bait out all of our interruptions before even getting to that point. And even without Onimaru, they can bait through all of our interruptions and win the game some other way. Also, on the other hand, if they go first, they're going to be setting up a couple of really important interruptions, but we are the best deck available when it comes to getting rid of those interruptions because of all of our removal spells, all of our negation spells. But I am going to show you how you can win going first, and it is going to need you to have another interruption on top of your inherent ones. I am going to activate my Dark World dealings here, and I top deck into terraforming, so I discard my area 0, because if I discarded the terraforming, then I wouldn't be able to activate it, and having the terraforming to activate gives us another spell engrave, meaning that we, just with the terraforming engrave now, we already have 3 spells engraved, so all of our Sky Striker spells from now on are going to get that bonus effect. So we're going to activate that area 0, summon Raye, toggle on area 0 target Raye, Raye chain to summon a Shizuku, and I'm going to rip off the top, engage area 0 and multi-roll. And if I chose multi-roll, then I wouldn't have another spell to activate, unfortunately, but if I used engage, then I would at least be able to get an interruption. So I'm going to use my engage. It is going to be able to draw me a bonus card. I'm going to search for Widow Anchor as an interruption, and it's going to draw me into a Shark Cannon. So now I have 3 interruptions to set. If my hand was better, I probably could have set up a similar situation as well. So I'm going to set my 3 back rows. Shizuku is going to search multi-roll on end phase so that I can guarantee have that, as well as, you know, it being a follow-up alongside area 0. But yeah, he's going to start his turn, going to use his skill to reveal Striker to get his limiter removal, and he's going to summon Striker and summon Wolf. This is going to be the best opening play for TGs. He's going to summon Wonder Magician, targeting Shark Cannon, and so I really got no choice but to use Shark Cannon, and I'm going to banish Wolf so he can't add it back later for his level 8 synchro plays. But yeah, he's going to use his skill now to get Recipro Dragonfly on the field, flip that up, and go into Black Rose Dragon to wipe my board. I have no choice but to negate this with Widow Anchor, and you might notice I didn't take the opponent's Wolf with my Shark Cannon, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to activate my Widow Anchor, but since I don't have any more Sky Striker spells to activate this turn, I feel absolutely fine about stealing his Black Rose Dragon after negating it. But yeah, he's still going to be able to follow up, still got 4 cards in hand. He's going to use Limiter Removal, discard DD Crow, which tells me he has another DD Crow, because obviously, why would you discard DD Crow? You must have another one. So he's going to get Wolf and Striker. He's going to summon Striker, summon Wolf again. He's going to use those 2 to go into Star Guardian. He's going to target Striker Engrave, and I'm going to use IDP. Since Striker and Star Guardian are both warrior type, I'm going to revive his Star Guardian and banish both of those. He still has a follow-up play though. He normal summons Screw Serpent, revives Wolf, banishes my Raye from grave so I don't float. He's going to go into Moonlight to return me to the extra deck. He's not going to attack, he's just going to have 2 Black Rose Dragons on his end phase, and I just have my multi-roll, and I need to top deck into a spell to send to, you know, potentially get some more follow-up plays with area 0. I do top deck into something, so I activate the multi-roll, set my Afterburners, and use it to potentially top deck into something. So I look Raye, Afterburners, dealings, I'm going to get myself an Afterburners, activate the Afterburners to destroy one of his monsters. Multi-roll is going to turn area 0 into a Raye, and I'm going to link that off into Kagari. Kagari is going to add back my Widow Anchor. Widow Anchor is going to steal his Black Rose Dragon, and now I can just go in for game. Look at that, bro. Oh my goodness. So I'm going first here, and I will say going first with Sky Striker isn't necessarily what you want. Getting that bonus card when you're going second is great, but also the deck just has a lot of really good going second options. This hand is actually really unfortunate because we don't actually have any access to Raye, so we're going to have to use that Dark World dealings to potentially draw into access, and unfortunately we don't. So we're just going to have to set a spell and set our area 0 here to send that spell to the grave to hopefully mill an engage or a Raye off the top. Thankfully for us, we do mill a Raye off the top, so we can normal summon that, go into Shizuku, and we have Ice Dragon's Prison here, but instead of Ice Dragon's Prison, we could have had the Shark Cannon pretty much be the exact same thing. Shark Cannon is kind of like half of what IDP does. It can yoink a monster from the opponent's grave, which can be important against a lot of decks. But yeah, Shizuku's going to search that engage on end phase as she normally should be doing. We didn't get to use multi-roll here, but we are still going to be able to get plays going. So they're going to use Live Twin Lilla. It's going to summon from deck. They're going to link off, and then they're going to bring a monster back. They're going to link off again, and when Kiss a Kill tries to bring back Lilla, that's when I'm going to use IDP, and at this exact same moment is when you would use Shark Cannon to take their Lilla from grave so that they don't get their revive going. He's going going to set 3 back row, so he's going to probably be able to survive. So we're going to use our engage, get our multi-roll, since we can use multi-roll now, but we also get a bonus draw, and we draw into a shark cannon. Must be nice. So we're going to activate that. We're going to link off into Kagari to add back engage, but he is going to warning point us. That's rough because we can't use Kagari as link material anymore. However, we can still do something about it. We're going to use area 0 to look at the top 3 cards of the deck to add a spell to hand and send Kagari to grave so that we're not locked up anymore. So now we can use our engage to get our jamming waves and draw a card. Jamming wave is going to destroy a back row, and since we have 3 or more spells in grave, we also destroy a monster. Multi-roll is going to send the area 0 to grave, so we can special summon a Raye from deck. We can attack in, and then quick effect go into Hayate, attack in again, and use Hayate to send the Weirdo Anchor and set that with multi-roll, and also set an area 0 with multi-roll. So we got some interruptions going now. We got a whole board, and we're whittling them down. They top deck in a Veiler, and they just attack into us because, I mean, there's no follow-up at this point. All we needed to do was survive long enough, interrupt them just enough so that they couldn't establish their own game plan, and that's basically how Sky Strikers work. Whittle the opponent's resources down until we just have too much advantage, and we win from there. This is a type of deck where just by playing it, you can see what you might have been able to do differently. You'll go for a play, and in the middle of it, you'll be like, damn, I should have done it this way instead. So really, this is the kind of deck that you can seriously get better at Yu-Gi-Oh! In general with. So just for that, I think that playing Sky Striker is something that everybody should do if they have the opportunity to, just for that experience of bettering themselves. The deck itself isn't crazy complicated, and because of that, it adds a whole world of complication, that being a lot of decisions to make. The more options a deck gives you, the harder it is to play, and this is definitely one of those decks, and just playing it is going to teach you how to get better at it. But if you are looking for any help when it comes to playing this deck, then be sure to join the Team 6K community Discord. The link is in the description, and the Sky Striker players in there will be able to talk with you to help you figure out how you can be better with the deck. But we want to know, how do you feel about Sky Strikers? Do you love them? Do you hate them? And which of the link monsters is your favorite? If you have any questions about the deck or in general, be sure to leave them in the comments and we can talk about it. And if you like the video, then slap like now, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell to get notified every time we make a new video. Have yourselves a good one, guys, and I've been Undead from Team 6K, signing out.
Hey, why they gotta hate on me? I done got me 250,000 views and they still saying they low key. They ain't wanna come work with the kid, but I'm flexing with Zay on beats. How they ask for a spot at the gym, but they leave all the weight on me. I don't ask them to wait on me. They would ask where they gon' be with a song if they wanted the weatherman. I ain't asking to pay no fees. She was homeless and needed a spot. I ain't ask her to pay no lease. I ain't ask her to say no please. I ain't ask her to make no cheese. Scream fake, but it ain't on me. Got clean so it ain't no streets. Why green if it ain't no keeps? Brought cream so it ain't no beef. My team say it ain't no chief. My demon, they hang on me. They seemingly ain't no peace. I seen him, he ain't no beast. For